Where is?
Oh, there's Alan. Hi, Alan.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
99.
99. Right. Okay. So we're going back to where we talk about where the woman, where the wife sells the property for her ksuba or rizono. So here's another case where bit of safe, a bit of ozel. Since the latter part of the mission is talking about where she undercharged, she had a $200 field and she sold it for $100. Avaration below ozel must be referring. So therefore, since the latter one talks about where she undersold it, the other one is must be speaking where she did not undercharge it. Diktoni seifa, oisik suba arba me'ozuz. If she had a ksuba worth 400, she sold 3 different people, each for $100. So she got $300. And the last one, Yafa Minei V'Dinner B'Moneh. The last one she sold for $100 plus a dinner. And Shalachron Michram Bottle. The purchase, the final buyer is void. Vishalkulan Michron Kaim, but all the previous ones are good. So in other words, only one that was bought was the last one. I mean,
Is it because she sold it with less value, right?
She sold all the first 3 properties she sold for $100, and that made it $300. And so she was still owed $100 on it. She sold the last property. She sold for $100 plus one dinner. So she got a little extra on that one. So
she says she sold the last one for 100, but it was worth 100 plus 1.
No, but she sold it for 100 plus 1.
No. It's sold it for 100. At
I
least
know.
in the English.
Yeah, it was she sold it for she sold the last property for 101. 101. So she got an extra on the last property. So we say because the last property was she got over what she should have gotten. So it's everything else is not void, is good. The transactions are good, but the last one is void. So Rashid Sefer Ben Ozo, we could say that both the first and the last part are talking about where she undercharged. The Sefer to Kamashlan and the latter one, because so in other words, what do you need all these cases? It's repeating over what he said in the last case. So time of the Ozo Biasmi, the reason that the last 4 is void is because she undercharged when selling the property of orphans, when she was making the last sale. But if she undercharged when it was her own property, so like you say, that's right. So according to that one, where they say the whole thing is bottled, the first 3 properties are bottled too, is where she undercharged it, because it wasn't her she was selling. She was selling the Yisomim. And there's going back to the basic, everything, when her husband died, everything really belongs to the children. So, but why do we say that all the things that she does? Because she wants to be sure that she gets her ksuba about it. So she undersold them. So when it's her properties, then she can do what she wants with it. But if it's children's property, if the Yisomim property, she can't undersell it. She has no right to undersell it, and that's why where we're talking about where it's all the sales are void is when she sold the Yisomim property. That's why you have to tell both the ratio of the sefer, because it seems to imply the same thing. So bottom ratio Shamati Minei, you've learned from this. If hers was worth $200 and Mocher Shava Monaba Masayim, and she sold property worth 100 for 200, or Shava Masayim Mona, or she sold property worth 200 for 100. The Skabla Kesubos, so she has received her Kesuba. We do not say that the sale is void. Now, where she sold property worth 200 zuz for 100, thus the widow is underselling her own property she has a right to sell, and yet the Mishnah rules the sale is valid. Why would the final ruling of the Mishnah reiterate the principle? So it's about the same. I would think that this altka ba based on the gamri. I would say that if there's that the sale is valid because this sale is removed completely from the house. In other words, it removes her. Once she makes the sale, she's completely has nothing to do with anymore with it. She got hers, and the rest goes to whatever's left over goes to the Yisoma. She can't, claim any more stuff. But here in the case of Lada Mishnah, where she still owed money for the Ksuba after the first three sales, Nigzer Mona Rishon Otu Mona Achron. Perhaps we should say that the first three sales of 100 zuz of land are invalid if it undersells the amount of the last sale, 100 zuz. So Kamash Malon, it tells us that we need not entertain such a concern, and so that the first three sales are valid. Rav Huda thus defends successfully his rejection of the Gemara's proof that an agent who sells more than he is authorized is regarded as violating instructions. Morris says that now another Ikadi Amri, the others who say, hello, Tiboy Le, you don't have to ask about this. Hey, Chadamar Le Zil, Zobin Le Lispa, where the principal told the Shliach, go sell me a lesach, a lesa, the Zobin Le Kuri, and the agent, the Shliach, sold for a full core field. The Vadai, most of all, the Vorava, he certainly, what he did, he certainly added to the instructions of, because the guy told him to sell this amount of property, and he went and he sold more. So where do you keep it, Borlech, where he says, Zil Zabin Le Kura, go sell for me a Kura by property, also Zabin Le Lisva, and they went and he sold only a lesach, which in other words, he undersold what the owner told to sell 10 acres of land, and he only sold 5 acres of land. So now there's two sides to what he did, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Where do we ski? I mean, like the Tovale Avdi, by selling only one lesach property, I did for you what was good for you. The for if I sold a full one, and it turned out you didn't need the money, you wouldn't be able to buy back. And thus you have suffered a great loss. Or Dilma Marley, or perhaps the owner of the land can tell him, no, it's not pleasing that I have many deeds that I have to worry about. In other words, he'd rather sell, if a man has a whole property, he'd rather sell the whole thing to one person rather than sell a piece here, a piece there, because then he has to keep the notes, always be careful of the notes. This way, if he has one note, he's easier to take care of. So you can look at it both ways. But he did him a favor or didn't do him a favor. The first case where the shliach says, I did you a favor because it's not good that anybody should sell property. And the only reason you did it because you needed the money. But what if I sold the whole property and you would only need half the money, so you would have money that what are you going to do with the money? You put it in the bank, you don't get any interest on it. Better to leave it in the land. So that's why he only sold half of the property. And the second case where he told him to sell half the property and he sold the whole property. So he said the complaint was that if he sold the whole property, he probably sold to different people, and then he'd have too many stars. Okay. So I remember Khalilan Musura Toshma. Nosan lo dinner shalzov. If he gave the shliach a coin of gold, he says, Havali cholak, bring me a shirt for this money. Molach vehevi He went and bought him bishlosha cholak bishlosha machalas, a shirt for the price of 3. Bought him and a cloak for the price of 3 sellers. And it was discovered that he had that the gold that the coin that he gave was hegdish shnei mala, both the principal, both the shliach and the one who sent him, both are moil and hegdish. They have to bring a meilo, they have to bring a 20% plus they have to bring him korban. So Iyamar Bishlama Shalach Iyamar Bishlama Shaliach Hai Gavno Shlichu. So if we say that he regarded Mosif al Devarv, he added on to his instructions. Yishuv Hochi Baal Abayis Moel. Therefore, that's why the principle is moel, and the shliach is not moel because he did what he told him to do. He just added on. In other words, he really got a better deal for the guy. He told him to buy 1 shirt for $6, and he ended up he got 3 shirts for $6. So he benefited that. But if you say that he brought Mavir al Devorah, but if you say that he violated because Abai Moel, why was the in other words, if the shliach did not what the sender told him to do, so why is the sender moel? Because he did do what he told him to do, so he's not a shliach anymore. He just took upon himself to do it. So what are we talking about? Where the agent bought a principal shirt were 6 sellers for the price of 3 sellers. In other words, he bought him 1 shirt that was. He told him to buy a shirt for 3 sellers, and he was able to get that same shirt. A shirt was $6 for a price of 3. Shliach Hamayim, why is the shliach? He bought him a good deal. So Atalia, so he committed bimila on the cloak. Let's see what he says here. A second. So since the shliach he got the cloak, he bought the cloak, and not at the shliach the agent's demand. He's committed mila on the cloak. In other words, that he didn't get mila on the shirt, but he got mila on the extra garment that he got. The Moor says, that's the case, Eva Seifa. In this case, the shliach, the Baal Habayis did not commit mila because I really wanted you to buy a larger shirt. In other words, I wanted you to buy me. If you could have gotten a shirt worth more money for the same price, I would have preferred that rather than having 2 shirts for the price that I gave you. And you brought me a small inferior shirt. Since you purchased a lesser shirt that I requested, you've not acted as my agent, and therefore I have not committed mila. And we should say that the shliach is the one that was moel. So my ra, what is meant by bad, inferior? Ra b'dama, it means that the shirt was inferior in price. That the shirt was actually worth 6 sellers, was purchased for a discount of 3 sellers, even though the principal received the quality of the shirt requested, because the principal can tell the agent, had you bought me a shirt that sold for 6 sellers as I requested, then Koshke Devare Shava Tarti Sri is a question would have been worth 12 sellers. That is even more than 12. In other words, if it was worth 6, and that's on this basis, instead of buying for 6, you bought me 2 shirts for 3 each. Since you got such a bargain, you should have got me for the 6 I gave you. You should have bought me a $12 shirt. So Dekanami Dekatoni, Motor Abihuda Bekitnis, where the agent brought him, he told him to buy beans. Both the principal and the agent have committed mila. The cases where what did he tell him to buy? He told him to buy a certain amount, and he bought. Let's see, what was the case there? Let's see, I forgot what it was. What was the case? By he was told to buy beans.
It says that the price of the beans don't change.
Oh, right, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So therefore, he could have gotten. He should have done what the messenger said to him. In other words, what the owner said. He should have followed through what he said, and since he did, so they're both moel. So yeah, akidyos the sella because beans sell at the rate of one sella. The kidyos from bruta and some sell at the same rate one buys for bruta. In other words, it's not usually when you buy more, you get a better price. So this is sell whether you buy a small amount or a large amount. Each pound is the same thing. In other words, usually a guy who buys 10 pounds pays cheaper per pound than a guy who buys 1 pound only. So we infer from this that what's the case talking about? Where where the price of beans is unaffected by the volume of produce sold. So if you say that where the sale was transacted in a place where they sold by the estimation, that cannot be. For where one gives a seller mostly the seller reduces the price for him more than he would have if he bought a smaller amount, like we just said. The place where they measure and sell by the kana. The Omar and the agent can tell to the principal, kama kana pruta. Each kana sells for a pruta, regardless of the total amount of purchase. Therefore, I failed you to use all your money you gave me to purchase. I caused you no loss. If you want more, they can just go and get it. So in other words, if he sends them out to buy a certain amount, he only buys, let's say, half the amount. So the owner can't tell him, I'm losing money because I got to make another transaction. It costs me more. So the agent can tell, the shliach can tell him, no, this is sold by the pound, everything, whether you buy 1 pound or 10 pounds. So if you want more, go out and buy more with the money. I'm not losing you. You're not losing anything. I mean, only maybe a little inconvenience for him, but that's but financially there's no difference. So if you go to a gas station and you buy 10 gallons of gas or you fill her up, it's the same price per gallon. They rip you off either way. Yeah. What's the gas today?
Well, I bought yesterday at $5.93.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a bargain.
I'm at Sear.
Where'd you find that?
In La Brea and Pico, that independent
Oh, yeah.
The Arco station?
No, it's
No.
a Union Oil, I think.
Oh, you
No.
okay.
No, it's called independent something. It's a big station.
Oh yeah.
On the east side.
Oh yeah, I know. They fill it half gasoline, half water. I think that's what it is, right?
Okay, my car is not complaining yet.
That's what I get to. I get the Arco, which is usually cheapest. Yeah, I go down to one place down in about 20 miles to save a few dollars for Arco station. No, okay, so Toshma. I said Kesuba Arba Beos. If the Kesuba is worth 400, she sold it to this person for 100, this one for 100, and Alco Fields she sold for 100, and Belachron Yothamon and the Dinnermon. I don't know if he repeats it over again. I don't know. So he's like we said before, she sells the last one for 100 and the dinner. Shalachron Guato, so we say the last one is Guato. We shall kula mochel kayam. All these are the ones before are the chira is the same. Kulamar sheishi re'avabe bekidia bekitinio, the small contiguous parcels of land which are not suitable for a single owner. Achanami here too. Bikitili, the Mishnah speaks of small parcels of land, thus are requiring whether the agent who deviates from his agencies regarded as violating his instructions remains unsolved, since we know here in the Mishnah has certainly not deviated from her agency. So I guess, in other words, she could, the Yorship are not losing because there was no, they weren't together, the lands, they were each separately. So she said, so she did really good by selling they were non-contiguous parts, so they were each separately. So she did good because usually a person wants to buy a land, he wants to buy one big parcel of land, so we could do a lot more with it than a small piece of land. So another question, it's obvious that if one said his agent sell a quarter by field to one person, not to two people, that the sale is void should the agent sell a property to separate persons. If he told to sell to two different people, not to one, however, the prisoner said to the agent, sell it to one without specifying, and not to two people. What is the law? Could he do what he wants to do? So, it means that he should sell it to one person, not to two people. He can sell because he can sell it to two people if he wants, because the agent, the seller didn't specify. In other words, I suppose like an agent today, if two different people come and offer their house that they should sell for them, if he sells to two different people, and you can't say, I told you to sell both houses to one person. No. Well, it came to Soria, the Gaber Bechizah Rabbi Bar Huna, they said to him, in such a case where the principal said, sell the field to one person, what is the law? He said to them, he could sell it even to two people, and to one person it's 100 people, because he said, even though the agent made a mistake and undercharged for the property, he can say to him, I was not discussing a case where the agent erred in price. There the sale is certainly void. He said, they said to him, there's no law of price where respect to land. Why then should the sale be declared void? Because we said, like we talked about yesterday, which means that there's no way that they could, estimate what the land is worth. There's no. In other words, if it charges them 100 or 200 for a piece of land, you can't go back. It should be void. So why over here do we say if he undercharged with the shliach, what the owner wanted for the land, if he sold it under the price, why do we say that it should be void? Anamili echad where the principal erred, but where the agent erred, he can tell him, I sent you to prove my situation, not impair it. Since you have represented me undercharging, then you have forfeited the authority to act on my behalf. And when he sold it to him, he didn't sell him as the shlichus of the Baal. So it's like if an agent, I guess, if you tell an agent to sell your house and you tell him what to sell it for, and he undersells it, so then I guess he, unless he clears it with you, he's probably responsible to pay you for it. You tell him I want 100,000 for my house, and he sells it for 90. He can't come back to you and tell you, well, that's all I can get for it. That's what I wanted. I wanted 100. If I couldn't get 100, I didn't want to sell it. So my timiration of Bei Shliach Labal, what do you say there's a difference between the actions of the Shliach and the actions of the owner? That now we learn over the Shluchai say to him, go out and separate two of them on my behalf, and he gave no instructions how much to take. Torah Badas Balabais, if he should separate it in accordance with the mindset of the owner. Video Dea Dato Shal Balabais, if he does not know the mindset, he should Torah Bebainis, he should separate the middle. Echad B'Chamishim, 1 in 50. Piches Asora, if it turns out the agent subtracted 10 parts for the intermediate standard, or Hosif Asora, or he added 10. Trumas a Truma, the actions are not invalidated, but the Truma is a Truma. This mission indicates that the maximum discrepancy allowed in the agent is a case is 10 parts. In other words, a person has to give Truma. There's a way you can either give a baitiness in the middle. In other words, you take one, you give him 1/10 of. You could give him like two comes out 2% of 100, which is the middle, or else you could give him. How does it come out to be? 50, 40, or 60. Remember how much truma, how we divide it? Remember how we do that?
No, I don't. But,
I think it comes out. Yeah, it comes out to be. Truma is truma. Meiser is 1/10, but truma is like what I think either 2%.
1 in 50. 1 in 50. 1 in 50.
Yeah, 1 in 50. Okay, so I thought 2.
So it's 2%. 2%.
Yeah, 2%. So we could give a little more or a little bit less. That's when the banus is exactly the 2%. 2%. So now, more says we look at Balabais on it in regard to the owner to the Torah. We learn all of the other feel even one part of 20 came up in his hand. Trumas a truma. In other words, instead of 1 in 50, 1 in 20 came up. That's what it is. Trumas a truma. So it's still it's we don't say it's mekachtos, it's truma that we say that it stays. The question whether he has we have to pay the guy or not, I don't know. I don't think he has to. I don't think the shliach has to pay. It's just that's what he did, because if he did tell him how much it does, if the owner can't come back and say, "I told you not to give so much," or "I told you to give more." So Tashma, come and learn. If he sold, the widow sold this person property for 100 and that person for 100, and in other words, three fields he sold for each 100 each. And the last person he sold worth 100 a dinner. The laws of the
No,
purchase.
Alan, she should have sold it, but she sold it for 100. She should have sold it for 101 dinar, but she sells it for 100. That's why it's void.
Okay, that's right. Okay, right. Okay, that's right. So
Okay.
that's right. Okay, right. I'm sorry. So
No. I'm just.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So the shalkul and mochel kaim, but the rest of the purchases are intact. So shisha breda avida, the where it's a small piece, which are all not suitable for a single owner. Hence, there's no basis for the court to validate the widow's sale. However, or she perhaps the seller does not want to proliferation of deeds against him, and so to one person could indeed mean not and not to two. Okay, so I think we'll leave the Mishnah for Ernie, right? Is that okay?
Well, you think Ernie will give Shurim?
So we can wait till